Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of Bruins Tape to Tape. I'm your host this evening, Caroline, and it is Tuesday, September 10th that we're recording, which means it's hockey month. Hockey starts this month. And I am joined today with my ever lovely co-host, Maria. Hello, Maria.
Hello, Caroline. I'm getting so ramped up. It's getting closer every day when we actually get to talk about games.
Yes. And our favorite special guest, Momo.
Charming, right? This is how you introduce a guy who bailed you out today with all the information he provided.
I know. Leading up to today's recording, I had a very busy day. I was stressed and dealing with other things, and so I just fired off a text. I need this video. Someone find this. And Mo always comes in clutch. So thanks, Momo.
You're welcome. Thanks for letting me invite myself here.
Anytime. We enjoy having you visit with us. So let's just dive right in. It is dark outside my window. The weather is getting cooler. And there's actual organized hockey things happening this week, at least for the Boston Bruins. So a quick, let's set the table what we're going to talk about today. We'll talk a little bit about captain's practice that began last week. That is kind of an invite, special, unofficial activity. We got to hear from some of the guys. The first day was open to media, so we heard some interesting things. Marchy's surgeries. Oh my God. And we'll talk a little bit about rookie camp, what that is, what that looks like, maybe a little speculation as to who we might see. And then we're going to do the one thing I have been putting off all summer. We're going to let Maria loose on our favorite goaltender, Jeremy Swayman.
Is he going to be our favorite goaltender? I'm just going to start with that. Okay, that's the $1 million question.
$8
million question.
I've been chatting a lot lately out in the Threads world, trying to help folks back off the ledge. Because again, I'm the realist. I'm the one who I'll believe it when I see it. And so, special shout out to new friend of the pod, Cassidy Dodge Photo. She asked me to also yell a little bit at Jeremy, but I'm going to defer to Maria on that one because she's the queen for that. But so captain's practice, like I said, special, invite activity. Actually, we saw a former Boston Bruin participating in captain's practice last week. Chris Wagner, present in his Avs gear. But it was fun to see. He's a local boy.
He's a local guy. Yep. He's got a lot of ties to the New England area. So it's kind of, and it's not unusual. I know some people were like, what is he doing there? This is not unusual. It is not uncommon for guys who live in a particular region or a particular area to join the captain's practices of another group.
Yep.
Exactly. They work out together. They've all played together. Wags was part of the Bruins organization for a really long time. So that was kind of funny.
They make friends, people, believe it or not. They make friends.
Exactly.
Hard to believe.
I know. So part of captain's practices involved the very first day, allowing the media to come in and have some conversation with some guys, and definitely recommend that everyone go and check out some of the conversations with Chucky and the new guys too, Elias Lindholm. But there was, of course, one particular interview that was a little bit eye-opening because we have on record our favorite GM saying this.
Okay. And also anybody headed for surgery. No, thankfully at this time we don't have anybody. We have some follow-up stuff that a couple players need, but we don't have anybody on the docket.
Key phrase there. Key phrase. Couple of guys that need a couple of follow-up things.
Yeah. So playing a little bit of devil's advocate, when I first heard that, I was like, well, it was like the day after the end of playoffs. Nobody knew anything. But if you had listened to Marchand speak, kind of sounds like he knew that was a direction that they were going in. 3 surgeries. He had an elbow situation that apparently had happened last year before the start of the season. Great. Might explain some of the comments that lots of folks were saying during the year, like, oh, he's not right. This isn't not right.
Yep.
And then there was sports hernia and groin injury. So what do you think? Are we going to see him at the start of camp? Knowing Marchand, but knowing,
he's likely going to want to be out there. I would keep him under wraps for as long as possible. He's going to need to be a significant contributor this upcoming season. And no offense, Brad, we love you. And I know I'm probably old enough to be your mother, but you're getting a little long in the tooth for hockey years. So, right, we need, to proceed with caution. That's my view.
I think you're right. Yeah, they'll proceed with caution, but I think he'll still practice. He'll still do some of the training camps, but probably not play any of the games.
No, let's not have him play any of these games.
They're not needed. No.
Listen, this is my fear, and there's always one of these out there where you've got a preseason game against someone, and there's someone who's trying to crack a lineup. Like take for example, if it would be Matt Rempe, how big would it be to lay out in a preseason game? Because we've seen this happen. Lay out a guy. Such as a Brad Marchand or a Pasternak, or you name any elite player in the league, just to get the attention of your coaches and your general manager or whoever the people are that are making a decision on the roster.
Or even Derek Forbert. He basically blew the entire last season because he was injured in preseason, and then it was just never healing. Getting aggravated over and over again, and he didn't have much of a season.
No, he wasn't the same at all.
No, it was just he never came back from really whatever mystery injury it was. What do you think, Mo? I mean, he admitted in the interview that he effectively hadn't even really started training until about 2 weeks ago, and Marchy is very well known for his work ethic and the fact that he basically doesn't ever stop skating during the summer. Do you see pros to the fact that he didn't have the same kind of summer that he typically has, or does it make you a little bit nervous?
No, not nervous. I mean, like Maria said, he is getting older, and hopefully he starts to understand that. And he's not going to play that much longer. It sucks to say. So there's probably not a whole lot of game that he has to work on to try to improve. I mean, he is who he is. We all know what he's going to try to do out on the ice. He's not Pasta, right? I want Pasta out there practicing and training and working on new things. Let Marchand just take the summers off, come back, get healthy, and that's all we need you for. I wouldn't be surprised if he misses a little bit of the early season, but maybe that's a good thing.
Right.
So maybe kind of let him heal and rest and then come back, and hopefully at that time early on, you can have Lysell and Merkulov up or something and try to see what happens. So.
Yeah, give them some game time. I think I read recently in an interview with Marc-Andre Fleury where he talked about how he trains over the summer. And of course, he's actually even older. He's turning 40 in November.
Yeah,
I think he was born in 84. And he said as he got older, he was taking more and more time off during the summers. And I think maybe even prior to last season, he basically took the summer off and just picked up his training in September. And I mean, you couldn't tell, right? Because like you said, exactly like you said, you get to a certain point where you're elite, you're top. It's all natural and muscle memory at that point, and it's probably more beneficial to have that rest. So,
especially after surgery, you can't skate with a hurt groin.
Oh my God, 3 surgeries at that. I don't even
know. Well, and I think that the elbow issue explains a lot to me because you know Marchand is one of the best, if not the best, at that, you know, that puck dangling and keeping that puck, you know, and being able to kind of, you know, skate around in a circle and maintaining that puck possession, which seemed to not be as fluid later in the season as we have, you know, seen him do in the past. So, you know, I think that's a key element to his game.
Yes.
And getting that back and being able to, you know, get back to that as top form as you can is a critical part of his game. I'm going to ask this. Do you think it's a little odd? And I know he said he didn't really start training in earnest until about 2 weeks ago, which leads me to believe that he's not that far removed from these surgeries. And I guess, you know, guessing, but why would you not have just had these surgeries, be done with it, and then, you know, start your routine as you normally would, particularly given that you are a little bit older, recovering from surgeries likely takes a bit more time than it might have when you were in your mid to late 20s.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just, it's just that this whole, you know, with Don Sweeney saying nobody's having surgeries, but we got a couple of guys with a couple of things. And then we hear Marchand at the captain's practices just acknowledging, you know, again, I'm not saying there's anything nefarious to it. It just seems a little bit different operating procedure than we're accustomed to.
Well, you probably could only have one surgery at a time, right? So to space it out, and depending what the groin surgery is, or you know, even the elbow surgery, whatever. I don't remember what it was, but you probably can't really do an arm and then a groin and then try to move around. It's, you know, not the most comfortable. So,
right.
I'm not worried.
It's unfortunate and probably a timing issue, and summers are still short, right? The season goes long. You know, they played through May, end of May? Mid-May? I don't even remember anymore. But
maybe it was the end of May. Yeah.
So timing is just not ideal, and hopefully he doesn't rush coming back and coming at full strength like he did a couple of seasons ago. I think, you know, first and foremost, 2 years ago, he was 2 years younger. Right? He was on the other side of 35.
Crazy. That was crazy coming back from that. Was it the hip surgery?
Yeah. But the other thing is, I think not only was he on the other side of 35, he was one of like 3 guys who was out. And I wouldn't be surprised one bit if he felt compelled to come back because so many guys were out, right? So that was the season that we started without Matt Grzelcyk. We started without Charlie McAvoy. I think there was some questionable issues. Something was happening with Patrice Bergeron. And so I think just kind of the combination of thinking you can come back from something a lot faster when you're just a little bit younger, and the team needs me, and his commitment to this team, and, you know, pushing to really come back. And I think he even admitted that he came back a little bit too soon. So hopefully now that he's done a year of captaincy, he can finally kind of be like, it's okay to take the time So that way, I'm going to put it out there, manifest this. When they go a little bit deeper into the playoffs, he's still standing and still performing the way that we know he can. So, all right. So we're going to take a quick break for a little ad from our sponsors, and then we'll dive right back in.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. What's something you'd love to learn? As an adult, do you make time to learn new things as often as you like, or was that lost in childhood? For me, I always have had a want of learning how to ice skate. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/THPN today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/THPN. NFL Week 1 is here, folks, and a new season means new ways to get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like picking a player to score a touchdown. Ready to do a touchdown dance of your own? Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the best place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $250 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 and get 1 month of NFL Plus premium on us. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, and Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball. NFL Plus Premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus Premium terms at nfl.com/terms.
All right, so let's talk new guys. So next week we're going to have a little special episode with another friend of the pod, and we'll talk about what these new folks are up to. But if you remember, a year ago at this particular camp, that's when we all were introduced to Maddie Patra. So this is rookie camp. Again, for our new listeners, new to hockey, this is an opportunity for first year and second year pro players to come out and show them what they got. And if they've got that extra special something, then they could get an extended invitation to varsity camp the following Wednesday. And then just like with a couple of the guys actually from last year, we had 3, which was particularly impressive. Then they get to make the team or at least finish at the very, very top as first call-ups for the Providence Bruins. So, we had Dev Camp, which was in July, and we saw an expanded roster because there were some college guys there, especially, the newest draft pick, but because they're in the NCAA, they're committed there. They're not allowed to attend this particular camp. And the Bruins have not yet released the invite list. And there are a couple. I will admit I don't follow a ton of prospects, but there is one that his name I've heard a number of times. They're expecting to see Jackson Edward, defenseman, another gigantic player, who's expected to come, as well as a number of centermen, all fairly well-sized. So I would have to say that the Bruins are committed not only to the here and now in terms of size, but I think a lot of these young folks are going to be also enormous. But knowing the young talent that we're going to be seeing in the following week, what do you think the odds are that we're going to see any of these gentlemen anytime soon?
Slim and none. Slim and none.
Yeah, I don't think there's any room for any of them, is there? I mean, unless they're call-ups and they go to Providence. But
well, and unless someone is like, blows your doors off, and you're like, Jesus, we got to give this guy, a shot. I'm not seeing how, as Mo stated, with all of these other guys that you've signed in the off season that are going to be vying for not a lot of open spots.
Yeah.
If you look at the roster, I'm not sure how any of these rookies are really going to get a legit shot.
Right.
Yeah.
I think on defense, right, you'd have to have at least a couple defensemen hurt at the same time, because we've already got 7 solid guys up there, and I don't know who would be your next man up. They signed Jordan Osterley, who was kind of that guy there that could go up and down, and Billy Sweezy that would probably be there too. But it's just good though that they've got some depth. I know everybody talks about the farm system being the worst for Boston, but
it's not ranked very well. I just read something recently that, still is not giving the Bruins great marks for their quote unquote farm system.
No, but it's not the worst farm system. I don't think. No. They've got some guys down there that could potentially develop to be decent NHL players. Yeah. So there's at least.
Let's remember there's a reason why Boston doesn't have a quote unquote spectacular development pipeline. And that's because they've been a ridiculously successful team for the last 15 years. Okay. So you're not comparing, in my opinion, apples to apples when you're talking about the prospects that exist for Chicago or San Jose or Anaheim.
Right.
Because where the hell have they been for the last 15 years?
Right.
In the dumpster.
In the dumpster. Right. Trying to work their way back up again. Yep. And as you know, and I think Razor has stated this on more than one occasion in the Morning Brew podcast. Okay. The NHL is very different than other professional sports leagues. It takes a long time to rebuild your team. One Connor Bedard is not going to change, not going to change the years of losing, where the Bruins have an alternative model in how they choose to maintain, sustain, and build their team to keep a certain level of, happy medium success for a long-standing period of time. Now, one could argue, how many Stanley Cups has that brought you since 2011? Yes,
but at least we've not been embarrassed.
But at least, when we're not one of the tank teams, okay? Well, we have been embarrassed in some of those instances, but those bad memories from our head. But
yeah. I mean, they've made the playoffs for what, the last 8 seasons? I think you've explained it really, really well, that the Bruins model is just that different in that they are not trying to put all of their eggs in one basket. And then what happens is you bring up all of these guys all at once, you get successful, and then they leave, right? Like that's just what happens because of the way the cap works. I mean, you had LA win Stanley Cup in the last 20 years, right? They're okay. They haven't maintained any sort of consistent good level of play. Anaheim, give me a break, right?
Yep.
San Jose, same thing. I would rather see the Bruins make the playoffs 15 times in 20 years than have 2 Stanley Cups. Because at least it's a good time. It's better entertaining. And I feel better as a fan that I'm following a team that doesn't just suck all the time.
Or get really good and then suck for a long time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Now, would I have liked the 3 Stanley Cups that the Blackhawks had during the tenure of, Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane and,
Sure.
Marion Hossa? I mean, I would have loved that. Of course, we would have relished that, but would we have relished what they're dealing with right now?
No. Right. Because you've heard me say this, Maria, time and time again. A single player doesn't win you a Stanley Cup.
No, not in the
and I've said for years, look at Connor McDavid, and my point was literally proven in June. The man willed them to win, what was it, game 6? And then he had no more to give.
Yep.
Because one man cannot win a Stanley Cup for a team. That's not how hockey works. So, so it'll be interesting. I'm so hockey starved. I will be tuning in to some degree to some of these games because I'm really curious. And I'm just really bored. So I'm probably going to catch some.
Practices start tomorrow, I think.
Yes.
So,
and the games begin on Saturday. Is that correct? Friday or Saturday? Is it
Friday?
Saturday? Okay.
There's a game Friday. It looks like noon Eastern.
And it's all in Buffalo.
Yeah.
Yep. Great. Another venue where the Jacobs family can continue to line their coffers.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 team 6-team round robin series out in Buffalo. You've got the Bruins, the Sabres, the Blue Jackets, the Devils, the Senators, and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Interestingly enough, for the prospects and the rookies, some key names are actually not going to be in attendance because they've actually made it to varsity camp. So we certainly are expecting not to see Matt Patra and company, as well as Merkulov and Lysell, because first and foremost, those guys have been in the system for more than 2 years, and typically it's only for first and second year. But they've also had some games. So they've earned an invite to play with the big boys the following week. So,
and those 2 guys have, they have an opportunity to make the Bruins NHL roster.
Yeah. I'm excited to see Patra just because he was great from when we saw him, and then he's been gone for so long. So
kind of forgot what we have there,
I know.
Right. Yeah. A little reintroduction into his game will be fun to watch.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So the moment everyone's been waiting for. Let's talk about Jeremy Swayman.
God.
So let's lay out the facts, because if you're like me and your algorithms are properly aligned to give you basically nonstop hockey content everywhere you look, every which way, every single day, we are hearing rumor after rumor from so-called insiders and experts and whatever about these conversations that have been had behind closed doors and have been impressively kept sealed, which has been a little bit of a surprise to some extent, right? I mean, I would like to think that the Boston Bruins play an honorable game in negotiating, so they would do it the right way, but you never know. So what we know as undisputed fact, it's not much, but as a restricted free agent, he was tendered a qualifying offer at the end of the season. So on June 30th, we don't know what that was. We don't know what the value is, except for per the CBA rules, it had to be at minimum equal to 100% of his current salary. So it had to be at least what he was making at the end of the day that day. The player then had a deadline in July and then the team in August to file for arbitration. Both parties opted not to do this. Now, when it comes to restricted free agents, they do have some flexibility in how they choose to move forward. So we cannot say one way or the other if Jeremy Swayman signed said offer. If he had signed it, then it basically is a placeholder contract for 1 year for whatever that value is. And that would mean that he could participate in official team activities. If he opted not to sign it, so the team has his rights, which means if someone were to come in and offer sheet him from another team, they have the ability to do right of first refusal, which at this point in time, it does not seem like that's going to be a thing. It's a rare thing to begin with. The fact that we even saw that this summer was pretty surprising for some other teams, but that's literally all we know. Now, I'm not a sensationalist because, again, I'm the optimist. I am also the skeptic to some degree. And, we've heard all these rumors that, his camp was asking for $10 million. How could he possibly ask for $10 million? Well, first and foremost, that seems insane because he's not an idiot. He knows how much money the Bruins have left. Okay. Everybody knows. I know. You know. If you listen to this podcast for 2 seconds, you know.
Does Washington know?
I don't know if Washington knows, but I don't know if Washington knows. But the other thing is, that's just how negotiations work. Okay. It's like, if you think about it in the reverse, when you go to buy a house, if they say, the asking price is $500,000, you're going to go in at like $450 because you're hoping maybe you can get this house at $490, right? That's literally how negotiations work. So if he's saying, if it were true, and he's saying, I want $10 million, well, then that opens the door for some negotiation. And maybe that actually means that he lands at whatever that specific, with 8 million and change, that they have left. But he cannot go in and say, hey, I want that 8 and change. Don's going to come back and be like, well, then let's talk about 5, right? Like that's how it works, people. Okay. So first of all, get over the 10 million, right? Like that was never, even if that happened, like that's never a reality. So we need to move past that. If it is, I will eat my hat on this episode when it happens, but I would be completely stunned. The other thing is we don't seem to really know, we've heard some interviews where he's talking about market rate and this, that, and the other. And it seems like there's not really a good comparison for him. So Mo, you kind of did a little bit of a look around. We've talked, some big contracts that have happened this year in Nashville and, of course, all of the other elite goalies that are out there right now that are making good money, but they're really not good comparables, either in age, experience. What have you found, if anything? Is there even anything that we could look at for advice on what to expect?
I don't think so. I mean, there's not a whole lot of goalies that are 25 that are kind of unsigned. I mean, Stuart Skinner's 25, but he's got a 3-year, 2.6. The other guy that's probably the closest comp is going to be Ottinger, but he already signed for 3 years, $4 million. So that report of the Bruins giving him $4 million at what, 6.2? That seems pretty aggressive on Boston's front and an actual good deal in my mind. That might be market value. So I appreciate that, but no, there's nobody. I mean, even the goalie's making 6.2 for a cap hit is pretty rare. So it's not a bad initial offer, I would say.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I thought it was certainly fair. And maybe, you know what? Maybe the money is not the problem. Maybe it's the term. Who knows, right? Again, nobody knows anything. I would not believe a single thing anywhere on the internet that anyone's claiming that they know. However, those things being the facts, Maria, as a lifelong Boston Bruins fan, how do you feel?
I am ready. I'm going to say this again, and I know I brought this up when we had Billy Jaffe on our podcast. Why this has gone on to the point that we are now mere couple of weeks away from training camp.
1 week.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. We know if he signed that qualifying offer, by the way, in 1 week.
Right.
Because if he didn't, he won't be there.
Everybody in the hockey world, except the parties involved in this. Why haven't we heard anything as to where negotiations stand? Mm-hmm. That's all I want to know. Are you negotiating? Where do things stand? Is there still some small conversations? But when you read the vast array of reporting where you have, the hockey news saying that they're, great news, a deal is imminent according to Darren Dreger. Well, yeah. Right. Then you got Ryan Whitney on the Spit and Chicklets podcast saying, he received information that, the Bruins had started at a certain number and the Swayman camp was looking at Charlie McAvoy money and the sides hadn't spoken in 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. So it's bothersome to me. And I'm saying this because I have been a Bruins fan for a very long time. And I have lived and seen some shady shit that has gone on via Boston Bruins when it comes to contracts with players. And something in my belly tells me that things are not going smoothly. I want to be proven wrong. I really, really do. But the fact that neither side seems to be sending any type of overlapping message about where things are and where they want to be is making me very, very jumpy here, folks. Now, again, I'm not a paranoid person. I just know what I've seen in the past with how sometimes things are done by this organization. And I am a bit troubled by this.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm a little pissed off. You need a freaking number one goalie. What the hell are we doing here? I'm not. Like, honest to God. No,
is that you in the corner, Caroline?
Yes, it is, right? Did you see? I'm not giving this kid $10 million, nor do I think that was, again, I've been involved in negotiations, right? You ask for the world, but then in the back of your mind,
you've got a number.
What are your must-haves and what I can live without this, okay?
Right.
But you, to your point, you need to start somewhere, and 9 times out of 10, right? You start high.
Right. Exactly. And,
but the fact that no one usually, listen, there's enough insiders out there that usually they have a track on things such as this.
This has been
so either both parties are playing it really close to the vest and there are things that we're not aware of in these conversations, or are there really conversations going on, folks? Because nobody seems to be reporting the same thing twice.
There's
the crazy thing.
Yeah, if you guys remember at the press conference, I mean, Don noted he was going to be pretty private about these negotiations. So I'm really not that surprised. And Don, being a former player, I think has a little bit more credibility than it comes to a Peter Chiarelli or the people that did it, back in the Harry Sinden days and those guys. So I think Don wants to do right by the player, and players holding out isn't uncommon. Pasta, didn't he sign like the day after training camp started, and then Carlo's contract
and
was
Chucky as well.
Right. So it's not uncharted territory, and I think it's just, is it for the Amazon thing, Caroline? I know you want it to be, so
I just want to see. Like, I just want to see what those conversations are, because that's the thing that's kind of crazy, is that there is no consistent story, which then makes me really question every single story that I read, right? Like, that's why I'm telling everybody, like, just take that with a grain of salt, whatever comes out, because Maria, you've hit the nail on the head. Every day it's a different thing from a different person,
a different source,
right? I mean, we've got, like you said, Spit and Chicklets, Drager, Elliot Friedman has shared his thoughts, and like, these are people who Friedman I hold in high regard. I think he is a very legitimate source, and I get a ton of league news from him, and so that's it. Maybe it seems crazy because, is this one more high profile than the others? Would we have been, I feel like we would have been just as insane if Pasta didn't sign his extension when he did, and it went as long as it did. And maybe we didn't feel crazy about Chucky because it was before Chucky was, really getting into his game. Same thing with Carlo, right? Carlo didn't really develop into the player we hoped he would until 2 years ago, right? So I don't know. Is this frenetic because it's Jeremy Swayman and he just came off of like the best stretch of his play that he's ever had? I don't know if it's situational. Why are we crazy about this? Why is this so
I don't know. And
crazy?
I don't know if there's some hardball being played here with respect to the fact that, this is a bit of a unique circumstance, because it's hard to find a comp for a talented goalie who is extremely talented, right?
Mm-hmm.
He would have been and he was the best goalie in the playoffs until the Bruins were eliminated. Mm-hmm. But you were carrying half the workload for the most part.
Right. Yep.
Right.
And so maybe the value you're putting on yourself based on what your peers are making, and I don't know, I haven't done a deep dive into all these other goalies in terms of what their workload is, but if it's not the same as Swayman's workload was or has been for the last couple of seasons, but he's placing, and he and his agent are placing a particular value on that, and the Bruins are placing a different value on that, then I can see where there's a potential divide there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because he hasn't played a full season. Mm-hmm. And again, we talked about this with Jaffe. Do we want him playing a full season? No, because by the time you get to the playoffs and you're talking about, 7-game series potentially for how many series to get to the Eastern Conference Finals or the Stanley Cup Finals, that's a lot of flipping rubber. And that's a lot of time in net. Yeah. So the only thing that we know for certainty is there is no deal.
Yeah.
There is no deal at this point in
time.
Well,
there's no
signed and out
extensive contract. We don't even know if the qualifying offer was signed, right? So like I said, as because I always have to refresh my memory on these ridiculous contracts, but if he didn't sign it, he will not be there on Wednesday next week. And that also means he is not allowed to play until there is a contract signed. And if he doesn't sign a contract by December 1st, he is done for the season. And we've talked a little bit about this. We've referenced the William Nylander deal, and that was exactly the same agent, and it was the exact same playbook. And he quite literally, he did not play the first 2 months of the season.
Correct.
He quite literally signed that contract. I mean, within the hour of the deadline. I believe he was playing in the meantime in Europe or wherever, but he also had a terrible season that year because he wasn't part of the team. He wasn't playing at that level. Like, so I just hope that that is being considered. And the other thing, in terms of the parties not speaking in the last 3 weeks, unfortunately, Jeremy's agent was also Johnny Gaudreau's agent. So that certainly could explain lack of communication for the last couple of weeks, right? So that being said, the clock is going to run out, and at least in 1 week, we will know a little bit more about where things stand.
Right.
So let me ask this, just a what if scenario. What if he doesn't show up for camp? Are we who are we going to look to as the potential bad guy in this situation?
Does there have to be?
Well, there will be, though.
I think
right?
there will be.
I understand.
Right.
For me, there's no bad guy, right? Like, it's you got to hash it out. You got to, just like the Bruins have to operate in their best interest, Jeremy has to operate in his best interest. You go get that bag. You earned it. Whatever. Good on you. But Boston fans will not see it that way.
No.
And I guarantee that Jeremy is going to be the bad guy because of the things that I've already been seeing online. And
that's my fear. That's not where I would.
No, I would.
My allegiance, right?
Right.
Because in any negotiation, in any relationship, it takes 2 people.
Yeah.
Okay. It takes, right? There's 2 sides to every story. Somewhere in the middle lies the truth.
Exactly.
But my fear is that the backlash will likely be levied on the player.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in this instance.
It almost always is. And I've seen some comments and things online that it's not to say that they're uneducated comments. I think that they are misinformed comments and that folks don't necessarily understand these nuances because they're not as obsessed with the game and understanding all of these details like we are. And that's okay. And hopefully they tune in and they learn. But I'm already seeing that kind of all of a sudden just flippant. All right, fine. I'm done with you then. Right. And I like Jeremy Swayman as a player and as a person, and say what you will about how fans have treated other players in the past. And we've maybe been in agreement with how fans have felt about some of our recent departures. This guy is not deserving of any of that vitriol. So I hope for his sake that, let it go a week. Then he's going to start to feel the pressure because it's not the same thing as William Nylander. It's just a very different situation. I worry about him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just hope he's not being, I don't want to say led astray, because obviously his agent is very successful at what he does. But, a couple of the comments that Jeremy made during recent podcasts with regard to, his exposure and experience in business classes and understanding the cap and, setting, not wanting to make things, detrimental for his peers and setting the market. And I'm wondering, is he kind of if you read through the tea leaves, is he saying that the Bruins are trying to lowball him and he's not going to be lowballed? It's, just because we're not getting any kind of concrete information. So you're trying to pick apart and read into and, just because, listen, we all want this kid here. We know he's a tremendous talent. We want him to be the franchise goalie for the Boston Bruins.
Right.
And I think what's troubling is, again, having had some exposure to how some negotiations have gone in the past. And I just go back to, the Torrey Krug, where, there was mistruths out there in that offers were made when in fact they were not, because the player came out himself and said, nobody ever made an offer to me. And it was the same general manager. So I just get a little bit, it gives me pause for concern. Does my head want to explode some days when I read, right, one person saying one thing? Why don't you just all just have a cup of what, right? Because you so desperately all want to be able to report something on this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But it is a little bit unsettling. I would think that it's unsettling for everyone.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. It's just hard not having any perspective. But it could just be negotiations. Bruins got their offer. It's on the table, and Swayman is just ticking down. They've got a week to make a deal. So I wouldn't be as worried.
Yeah, maybe he's making them sweat. Maybe this is his way of kind of, poking the bear, for lack of a better pun, after hearing apparently things that he was not happy about hearing during arbitration.
Right.
But I think I'd like to hope he's gotten over it a little bit more, but
he's 26 years old. No, he hasn't.
Yeah, that's true. But I guess if and when a contract is signed, do you think there will be a press conference where these hard questions will be asked and we'll get answers?
There will be no answers.
There will be no answers. The questions will likely be asked, but there will be no answers.
Until Jeremy slips, because that's what happened last year with the arbitration, and that didn't happen for months. I think that happened in
that was during the season.
Right. It was like in January, February.
Relatively innocuous question, and he felt the need to, express the fact that the arbitration was very difficult for him. He heard things that, likely didn't want to hear.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I don't expect that anyone will speak on it, and we're just never going to know until someone writes their memoir or they spill the beans in the Amazon special. Well,
and hence why Brad Marchand said during his
right off the
bat, I'm not talking to you guys about my contract.
Yep.
This is the one and only time I'm going to address it.
Yes, 100%. Good on him. But, well, we're going to know in a week, and that's all we can say about Jeremy Swayman. So, remember, every story you hear out there, take it with a grain of salt. Nobody knows anything except the people that are sitting around that table. And as we have seen throughout the entire summer, they are not saying a word until they want to say a word. So unless it's widely and very consistently reported, don't listen to a damn thing out there about this. So, well, our time has come to an end. As it always goes by very, very quickly. So I want to thank you both again for a lovely conversation. We are inching closer and closer to puck drop. I can't wait. I'm so bored.
It's been bad.
It's been awful this summer. I don't know why. But
pick up golf. That fills the gap. That fills the void in the off season.
Well, it's football season at least. So,
and the Patriots are 1-0.
Oh my God. Well, make sure you like, follow, subscribe on any of our audio platforms or on YouTube so you can stay informed. We've got some fun videos that have been coming out lately. But as always, go Bees.
Thanks,
go Bees.
everyone.
Thanks, guys.
What is today? The 10th.
The 10th.
All right.